All right, I think we can go ahead and get started. We're a couple minutes after 4, so we're giving people extra time to filter in on the last break. Thank you for being here for a 4 p.m. session. I know that's hard. Maybe can I just do a quick audio check? If you are not hearing me online, or you're not hearing anything, maybe shout in the chat. This mic is on, yes. Should I speak louder? I can speak louder. Try not to overpower everyone. But clearly no one wants to sit close to the front. We'll address that later. Okay, let's get started. Bringing Earth science data to life with open source storytelling, which was our take on a long title for ESIP. But basically what we're gonna do here is we are going to actually practice writing stories with some open source software that we've developed with NASA, okay? So for all of you who like to sit in sessions with your computers open, this is the one session where that is totally approved, and we actually want that. You will get your hands dirty. Thank you for starting the process early with your laptops. All right, let's jump in. I'm Anthony Boyd. I'm joined by Sean Malone with Element 84, Brianna Pagan, who you already know and love, and Brian Freitag could not be with us, but he's our main partner over at NASA for this work. What are we gonna do today? So this is our agenda slide. We are going to practice with this open source software that you can really think of as an alternative to Esri Story Maps, which I know a lot of people would love to have. As much as Story Maps are a great tool, it is nice to see some of this functionality in an open source self-hosted solution. Okay, we're also going to practice configuring actual stories. So we've set up some content already. You don't need to bring your own. If you do have stories and content that you'd like to configure, I love it. We will help you through that, and we'll see what we all create. What we won't have time for, as much as I would love to talk about these topics, the first one is storytelling and writing best practices. This is a huge topic. I'm probably not the expert to be giving a talk on that topic, and especially in a science world, I think that this is hugely important, is how can we write more engaging content as opposed to the tools that support that content, right? So this workshop will focus more on the tools. We've set up some data for you to play with in this dashboard that we're going to look at. That is probably the one limit that we have for this workshop when it comes to the tool is we're not going to be able to bring in outside data. So if you're reading one of the stories and you think, oh, it would be really cool to bring in this CO2 data set that I have, that's a great idea for us to explore later. All right, and let's start off with our favorite thing, Slido, maybe, if it gives us the option. How do I get the, nope. Doesn't want to give us the QR code. Yeah, you're right. Yep, so let's do that. I will join the Zoom link and we can share. Can you do that? Can you figure out? Yeah. Okay, and then I'll just go to the next slide and we'll talk a little bit about this first. Okay, so open source software. You've probably heard us talk a little bit about the VEDA project this week. VEDA stands for Visualization, Exploration, and Data Analysis. And really, from the standpoint of this workshop, I want you all to think of that as the vehicle through which we have developed this open source software. So all the software behind what we've built with VEDA is able to be reused outside of NASA, outside of quote unquote VEDA. And that software has a lot of different arms. We won't have time to go into all of them. But when we think about storytelling, I think about this in a few different ways. One, as narratives. So these are like New York Times style articles where you go and read a narrative and maybe there's a map. The second are tools, because map visualization tools can tell stories as well. So we've built a few tools through the VEDA project that I've captured a couple screenshots here, including showing 5 regression data, with NASA VIIRS data, generating time series analysis charts with global gridded data sets hosted in the cloud. So we've developed a number of different tools that can help scientists and users tell stories with this data. And then lastly, dashboards, which is really just a way to provide access to stories, because sort of that same thing, if a tree falls in the woods and no one hears it, if you tell a story in the woods and no one hears it, did you really tell a story? And I think that's where the dashboards part of the Veda project comes in. For today, we're just going to focus on the narratives. The other two parts of the software that we built are really important, and you'll see it come together in the example dashboard that we'll be working with. But I really want us to focus just on telling stories in this narrative format in a much more engaging way. Any chance to get us that? Yeah? Okay, let's go back then to the Slido if we can. I'll probably have to stop sharing. Is that what that is? Am I still sharing? Okay, yeah, you want to start sharing? Where is it? Where is it? If I go like to this one? Yeah, but how do I inside of here? Here, I'll let you do it. Nice. There we go. Perfect. Slido. Yeah, go ahead and scan this QR code. There'll be a few different questions that we're asking throughout. This first one, I just want to get an understanding of what storytelling means, because that is such a loaded term. I think every conference you go to, you probably hear about storytelling. And I want to understand from your all's perspective, what do you think of when someone says that word? What tools are you thinking of, or outputs, or formats? Are you thinking of a specific website or a style of storytelling like we just walked through with having tools and narratives? Maps, yeah, New York Times graphics. Esri story maps, I mean, it's in the name, right? I am doubtful. Go back one more. Yeah, there we go. You're good. Yeah, moral or conclusion, right? I think that's a really important, that gets into, I'd love to have that conversation on how to write a good story with a narrative arc. Tableau stories, that's a wild curveball. Okay, I see a few more people typing. I think this is really, really, really useful to see. I think, yeah, Terria.js. So there are a ton of tools out there to tell stories. And it does not surprise me how fragmented, even with a focus on earth science data or science data, you've seen just in this thread 3 or 4 different tools. I'm sorry to throw another tool at you. But again, we think that an open source self-hosted solution is really needed by the community. So let's go to the next Slido. So now I want to understand, what challenges do you currently face? So for any of you who have data that you work with that you want to share with the world, I would posit that it is generally understood that telling stories is the most effective way to share that data with another human being. I think where we run into issues, well, is what I want you all to call out here. Yeah, time, I see coming up a couple times here. Jargon and language, Yeah, if you see something that you resonate with in this word cloud, feel free to double down on it and submit. You can make multiple submissions. Oh, this is interesting. I don't like talking to the lay audience. That is great. Yeah, saying the tough part out loud. I love it. All right. I'm seeing as kind of center, there's a lot of things about maybe the skill of story writing, also the time. And then dealing with data, which I think some of that will tie in directly to what we're going to see here today. Okay, maybe next one. Okay, so again, like I mentioned, this is not a workshop on how to write better stories. But we do have some really core storytelling beliefs that we're bringing into our software development, that we're bringing into the product that we're sharing with you all. And so, yeah, thank you. I don't have my clicker now that we're on my computer. The first is engaging is understanding. So I saw a couple things in the word cloud about serving raster data and having maps available. I think that is one thing that Esri Story Maps does really well, is you can engage with the data directly in the middle of the story. And our core belief is that if you can engage with the data in a narrative, that is infinitely better than an image or a screenshot. And I know the number of journals that I've read through where I just get, my eyes glaze over because there's screenshot upon screenshot upon screenshot of maps or charts. And if we can provide tools that actually allow users to engage with it, now they've gone from just reading a narrative to actually understanding what the data is that the narrative is about. Okay, the next one. The second is show data directly from the source. We don't want any data duplication. We all have enough work to do. Time was the #1 challenge with storytelling. We don't need to turn around and tell you to put your data in a new format in a new location just to write a story about it. So that has to be the first thing that we deliver with any sort of open source storytelling tool. And then the third is data and story ownership should remain with you. And this really goes into the open source principles and why we think that there is a need for a storytelling tool that is totally open source and self-hosted. That comes with challenges, of course, but I'm sure none of you like forking your data over to third parties, especially when there's no guarantee of what's going to happen with that data in the future. Okay, so I got one more Slido before we get into the workshops. Now that we've talked a little bit about the challenges, I want to understand, what does your ideal practice look like? What are the things that, preferably in 1 or 2 words, because this will create another word cloud, how do you want this to feel like in the future? Oh, I'm just realizing I'm not on camera when I walk over there. I'm sorry, people online. Here I am. Yep, easy. Easy and seamless. I think that plays into the time challenge really well. Collaborative, fun, polished, accessible, exciting. I agree with all of these things. Sweet, this is perfect. I can take this, print it out as a list, and just hand it to engineers. And I think we'll be ready, right, John? Yeah. Yeah, I'm noticing a lot of trends here. So I think easy and seamless is definitely, and just part of the workflow is really important, because If no content and stories is getting created, there will be nothing to read. And then I'm noticing a lot of fun adjectives about what we want the end experience to be like: enlightening and exciting and engaging, spoken word augmented by interactive visuals. So I like these. All right, let's get into writing stories, and then I want your honest feedback thinking about this list. When you see these tools and these stories that we're going to create, I want your honest feedback of how close are we? How well did we hit the mark? How much work do we have to do? Okay, so be thinking about these adjectives as we go through this workshop. All right, we're going to step through the setup here, step by step, as slowly as we need to make sure we bring everyone along with us, okay? We have tried to design a workshop here that is very simple and straightforward, but we don't want anyone to get lost. So this link at the top here for our dashboard is the production version of the dashboard that we've created for this workshop. You won't need that link only if you need a reference, okay? The link where I want you to start is our GitHub repo. I've posted all of these links in Slack. There's a thread in the Seattle Slack channel if you all have seen it there. It's also in the notes document if you're already in the notes document, especially online. Did you share the links? Perfect. Sean just shared the links in the Zoom chat as well. So they're all over. Also, you can probably just type in this GitHub repo if you're used to going to GitHub repos. So let's start there. I'm going to give everyone a few seconds here to make sure we're all on the GitHub page because then Sean is going to step us through the setup process so that you all can start configuring MDX files. I need an indicator. I want to look at everyone's screen. Maybe, yeah, show of hands. Is anyone having trouble? Yes. Okay, on your phone. Okay, any trouble online? Raise a hand or put in the chat. We've got a few people monitoring the chat. Okay, great. I'm going to assume that we're mostly there, and I'm going to hand it over now to Sean to step us through the setup process.
Perfect. Thank you, Anthony. So just as a heads up to everybody, all we're going to need for this interaction is a web browser. So no need to open VS Code or any other code editor. We're going to do this completely through the browser. Try and set it up so you're not pinging across a bunch of different tabs if possible, because we're going to be bouncing back and forth a couple of times. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen really quick. And let's go ahead and get started. So we're here within our repo. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're just going to navigate to some stories. So we're going to navigate through the structure of this. We're going to go into our app here. And if everybody would like to click and follow along so that we can all get to the same place, we're going to go into app. I'll give it a second because I know internet connections are not consistent across the world. And then let me do this. There we go. And then once we're in there, we're going to go over to our content. Once we're in, okay. Once we're in content, then we're going to go ahead into our stories. And then from here, we have a couple of example stories set up. Some of these have live content within them, and one of them is our template story that we want to kind of get started with. So we're going to go ahead and click into that MDX file, and then from here, we can go ahead and click on our little pencil icon. This will allow us to edit this MDX file live within GitHub. So if everybody could just go ahead and click that icon, you should be given an interface where you can start to type into the MDX file and edit. If everybody could navigate down to line 20, the first thing that we're going to do, super simple, just enter your name and organization, or just your name, whatever's easiest. Once we've got it, looks like we've got a couple people still working, so I'll hold here just to make sure everybody catches up so we don't leave anybody in the wash. So our edit button is, once we get back, is this little pencil icon in the top right. If you are on a tablet or on a cell phone, it might be in a different location. Yep, yep. So we'll continue moving. We'll go ahead, we'll edit, toss in your name and organization, or just your name. Yep. Yep. So for everybody online, we're just going around and making sure that anybody that's kind of caught up on anything we're assisting with. So we're going to hold here for a moment. That is correct. Yeah. There was a question raised within the chat about forking this repo. That is what we're ultimately going to do. So please feel comfortable with accepting that dialogue. If you're running up against it, go ahead and fork this repo, and then we'll go through and we'll show you how to go and continue editing these stories. Yep.
Accept update, right?
Yep. We'll go into that next step in a second. I just want to make sure that everybody else is caught up. Okay, so we'll go ahead and keep moving on. We'll hit commit changes, and then from here, we can add whatever custom commit message that we would like, and we'll hit propose changes for those of you that run up against that, or for those of you that are presented with a fork option, please go ahead and hit accept. Now, from here, what we're going to do is we're just going to create our pull request. So we'll create our pull request. I'm going to rename this demo for our purposes today. And then any documentation or anything that I want to add in here for tracking purposes or explaining what we're editing, I'll add at the lower part. So actually, if you guys could go ahead as well and put your name within the title, just to keep things clear. So if everybody names a demo, we don't have a bunch of people messing around in one another's PRs. So, oh. Yep, you're gonna go ahead and create a fork, and in our next step, we're gonna show you how we're rendering that through a Vercel application. So go ahead, feel comfortable to edit the same file. It should be developed in your own GitHub account or forked over to that, so these should not overlap. So we'll go ahead and hit create pull requests, and then from here, we should have our brand new PR, which is pointing to development seed main from our fork path. Okay, so now what I would like everybody to do is open in a new tab our fork. So I'm gonna open this link. We're gonna come over here, and now we see all of the files that we had previously underneath my own fork. One thing that I want everybody to be aware of at the beginning, you're probably going to run up against some errors here with Vercel. That's completely fine. What we need to do is go through and authorize everybody's forks to leverage our account so that we have the correct tokens and authorizations to render some of our components. So Anthony currently is going through and approving these forks. And what you should see once yours is approved is this interface or message here where we can look at our preview. For the sake of our demonstration today, please open your visit preview in a new tab just so that we can keep things nice and organized. And then from here, we can see our application. Then I'm going to go ahead and go into our stories. We have our story template rendering. And once I go in here, I can see all of the changes that I've gone ahead and made, already rendered and showing just based on a few code changes done all within the GitHub interface. The reason why we want to go through it like this today is so that we can keep a very short loop of feedback for our workshop. You can interact with this code through a local setup. We have that information within our slide deck, but to keep things moving, we're going to keep it within the GitHub interface for now. If you have any questions on how to set that up in your local machine, please feel free to reach out or communicate through the chat. So now that we have all of this done, what I would like everybody to do is go to your branch. And what we're going to do is I'm going to go back through the app, or sorry, not your branch, your fork. We're going to go into our application. We're going to navigate all the way back to our template story, going through content, stories, and then our template story. And we're going to go back in and edit this file once again. So from here, we have the opportunity to add any information, any data that we would like, or I apologize, not any data that we would like, but we can start to interact with some of the components that are available within this application. So we have our name. If you guys would like to put in some message there, if you want to have fun with it, go to ChatGPT, have it pull up some Lorem Ipsum or Gemini, whatever your preferred flavor of LLM is, or AI interface, and you can start to add in any content here. And what I'll do is I'll just add some test information here, and then we're going to go through the same interaction. I'm going to hit commit change, and when you're presented with this modal here, we want to make sure that we're committing directly to the branch that we've created within our other repo. So this allows us to maintain the Vercel tool presenting this information. If we create a new application, we're going to need to go through the authorization process again. Now, this workflow is very specific to our presentation purposes today. If you decide to pursue using this tool outside of this use case, you will not run up against these same hurdles leveraging Vercel. For those of you that are not sure of what Vercel is, it's just a tool we're using to render the application very quickly so that we can look at our changes. So we'll go ahead and hit commit change. And from here, we'll go back to the PR we've created, and I'll go ahead and click into our visit preview, go to stories, navigate back, and hopefully this is rendered in time to show our new information. Oh, we're running up against some issues, so I'm going to check that live. Here we go. Okay, so we're just waiting on this to authorize again. Yes. Okay, so we got a handful of people. Just for everybody's awareness, we're going through and we have to manually approve and authorize access to that. So we're slowly getting to those. It's going to have to redeploy. So it will go through the process of redigesting that PR, presenting it once again. So it might take a minute or two. I would actually go back to your PR and wait for a new preview link to be provided. Yep. Gotcha. So just to keep things moving, what we're going to do is I'm going to navigate into our stories here, what we have established, and we'll go into our value of data in monitoring the health of crops. So we'll tap into the story and we can start to see a narrative that's established where we have a certain amount of information associated with whatever data that we're trying to effectively communicate. So we're able to pair this live data representation with any form of images or map representations. As we kind of continue to navigate through, most of this example story is images that are uploaded through the MDX format. And then we'll kind of go back and we'll pick a more interesting one. Let's do nitrogen dioxide and sulfur. So from here, we actually have the ability with the data that is in our repo to establish an interactive chart. So from here, we can start to more granularly interact with the data associated with this narrative. From here, this helps us communicate certain levels of information if we want a user to navigate in and start to really dig into what's presented. We allow this functionality innately without you having to build custom components. You're able to tap into the data sets provided or the data sets that you augment and input into the system yourself. We also have the option and the component available where we can do date comparison with sulfur dioxide data. Not limited to sulfur dioxide data, you will have to either peruse the catalogs available, or if you have data that you do want to integrate into this, you'll have to do a little bit of manual adjustment to implement it within this dashboard. So from here, we have the option to look at 2006 versus 2021 data, and we also have the ability to zoom out and look at it at a much higher level. And we also have a certain level of manipulability where we can look into it at a deep granular level. Oh, yes? One sec. Do you want to ask that again? Just
Sure,
so
yeah.
hear?
Can you just go into a little more detail about what you mean by having data in your repository? So are we talking CSV files? Are we talking JPEGs? Are we talking unrendered net CDFs?
So most of the data that's leveraged is through the Stack API, which Brianna, you might be more able to speak to the data portion of this. My capacity on this project is more on the front end, enabling the components to digest this data and represent them in a visual format. So I'll hand it off to Brianna real quick. She can answer that a little bit more accurately.
Yeah, and I'll also pass it to Anthony, who's been working on this much longer. But we have right now a data catalog that's specific for Veda, where we do ingest specific NASA data sets to make them available to be used for the storytelling platform. A goal of ours is to be able to expose other data sets so that way you wouldn't have to, ingest a data set again to something else for this to be able to work. But we are touching NASA archival data. Some of it was originally NetCDFs and translated to COGS or a better format to be able to do visualizations. But we're basically hosting this data through Veda.
Yeah, of course. For those online that were maybe unable to hear that, we're curious about where the instructions to inform the visualization based on color, annotations, everything associated with that, which is actually a great segue, thank you, to, no, that's actually perfect, to where we're actually storing this information within this platform. So within our repo here, we have our stories. We also have our data sets. So within our data sets, we have these MDX files that are pointing to whatever information that you necessarily want to render within here. I'll go ahead and open this within a raw format real quick. And what we have is the data sets associated with what we want to render within our application. You do have to set up these data files to have them referenceable for these components. So any data that you want to show, whether it's your own custom, whether it's something you're pulling from somewhere else or something that somebody else developed, we need to make sure that we have this file format here to start informing the components down the road within this application. So I believe that's kind of our rough layout and our quick, everybody drink from a fire hose real fast on how we're going to use this application. Anthony, did you want to take over and we'll go through our task setup? Yeah, of course. So, sorry, we're playing hot potato with the mic. Yeah. So within our application, it is within your fork, you'll go to app, content, then data sets. And within here, these are our template data sets. This is real data. We've just prepared it for the purposes of our workshop today. So there might be some limitations you guys might have questions about, whether that's granularity, density. These are all questions that we run up against in our day-to-day work with this dashboard. So there are limitations to what we have within here at the moment.
Yeah, I'll speak real quick to the preview links. So most of you should have your builds queued up. It's just kind of working through it one at a time. Just love technology in that way. So some of you will have preview links that work. Some of you will have preview links that work in 10 minutes, right? But in the meantime, I think we can start digging into exploring the application a little bit more and exploring the configuration options. And then the preview links will kind of come online for individuals as we go. So let me go ahead and I guess I'll probably have to share from my screen again. How did you do this last time? Oh, you probably had to do this first, huh? Cool. I think we can get this one. Cool. There it is. All right. The instructions that Sean just went through, we have on the slides. We also have in the README file of the repo if you ever need to check in on them again. But let's go and start talking about the tasks. Now, there's a story about agriculture that talks about the GeoGlam dataset. And this is real, actually. This is a real story. This story has lived inside the Veda dashboard for about 2 years, 3 years. And it has never actually had an interactive map, even though we have the GeoGlam dataset visible through the dashboard. So I want all of you, your first task is to add an interactive map to that story. And I want to see how you do it, what it looks like, how you fit it into the story. And so you can find the MDX file in the same folder location that Sean just navigated us towards. It's the satdataagriculture.mdx. The template, a good template for the map widget, can be found in that template story that Brianna has created for everybody. And so you can use that same MDX text in the sat data agriculture MDX file to add a map into the narrative. I think this will be a good first task just to get you familiar with what are the widgets, how do we add them into the MDX file, and also you're interacting with a real story and I think making it better. And just like Sean mentioned too, all the dataset information for GeoGlam is going to be in that dataset folder. So any of the metadata that you need to add for the MDX file, you can find there. Let's start there with that task. After that, we'll open it up, give you more freedom to explore. You can edit the template story, make it whatever you want it to be. You can add lorem ipsum. You can bring in an article that you just read, or maybe you recently wrote. But for now, let's stay a little more narrow on the first task. Are there any questions on that? Yes. Microphone.
So I'm by no means a developer or coder or anything like that. I do have GitHub account, but that's it. What's the benefit of this application compared to RShiny?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing that I'll address is I think the thing that you weren't saying is MDX sucks, and I'm learning about it. Oh, I said that to myself all the time. And working in GitHub is frustrating. I would say one of the benefits of Esri Story Maps is it is a great content management system, right? It is really easy to create a story map. You could do it in 12 minutes, and we just spent 30 minutes getting us all set up. So one of the benefits that I would say of a tool like this over Esri is, oh, I'm sorry, I understood Esri. Oh, ArcGIS or? I don't know that tool. Do you know it? Yeah, I haven't used it before. I'd love to explore it more. Yeah. So sorry, I misunderstood your question. Uh-huh. Yeah, I think not knowing about the tool, I probably can't speak to the value prop of this, but I would say in general, like our value prop is open source, self-hosted. We work natively with cloud or science data, cloud hosted or science data. So, the data set question, like if you're pointing to data that's indexed in Stack and is a cog, right? Yeah. Yeah. Right. Yeah, this tool, right. Yeah, I think this tool works really great with earth science or geospatial data. Right, is maybe my short answer, not knowing what the tool is. Yeah. That's where you can find any information about the GeoGlam dataset. So the things that you'll need are like the dataset ID, the layer ID. Through the dashboard, you can actually see that GeoGlam dataset in the exploration tab. Did you show me that? So maybe we can start on the dashboard, and I can share that. Am I here? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I like that suggestion, Brianna. I think if you're experiencing troubles with the Vercel preview, I'll figure that out on my side. I can see where it's failed and where to restart it. But if you go to the production dashboard link that I shared in Slack, and it's in the Zoom chat as well, you can explore the data catalog here and find the GeoGlam dataset. You can also put that dataset on a map so you can see what it contains. And this is information that we can put in a map widget inside of a narrative. In a similar way to what we see with, for example, I think there's a map widget in this one. We have these interactive charts, and we also have these maps here. So we want people to actually engage with the GeoGlam dataset. Right now, if I go to that story, it's all images. And you can't actually click around and explore this map. So that's the first task that I think will help us get familiar with what a map widget is actually going to that MDX file. And let me jump into the code here. Remember, we're in app, content, stories. And here's my agriculture story that I want to add a map widget to. So I won't actually do this because I don't want to create a new branch, but I might find a spot in here, and maybe it's right here, I decide, where I can add a map widget. And so this is where having the template story is going to be really helpful to write this MDX content. I'm pretty sure it's something like this, but don't quote me. And then you'll have to enter in all your props, which might be something like ID equals this. And layer ID equals this. This is probably data set ID. All of that you can find in this template story here. Yeah, I can discard them. As well as in the documentation that I linked in Slack, where I can see, oh, here's a map. Here's how I configure it. I need a dataset ID, a layer ID. I need to tell what time. Like maybe there's a particular day that I'm interested in when telling the story. Maybe I want to zoom in on a particular city, country, or I want it to be zoomed out to have a view of the entire world. But I can add an interactive element to the agriculture story. Which is kind of the cool part. Like we're connecting to the data. And so we've already, through these widgets, we've already figured out tiling services. It's pointing to data that lives in the cloud. It's already indexed in Stack. And basically all we need, these are, yes, we're making Stack queries to cogs, essentially. And these files that we're working with, we're just configuring the front end. Right, and yeah, and we're using MDX as a somewhat human readable way to configure a narrative so that the front end knows where to go find this data. Yeah, exactly. And the Stack API endpoint that we're using for this particular dashboard is the same Stack API endpoint that the NASA Beta dashboard uses. But all of this, you can point to your own stack with your own files, and it'll work just the same. That is, yeah, so we do have a Stack browser, and so far we've been using it as a way to help our admin do our admin work, basically, to kind of figure out, okay, here's the data set that we want. Yes, it looks exactly how we want it to look. And then we come to the front end and configure it there. In the future, we do want to draw those closer together so that we have less configuration needs in the front end, and it just points all the metadata that already exists in Stack. And then we'll use a Stack browser to do most of that configuration work. Yeah, question? Yeah, and so for the folks online, there's a question if the data provider has rendering instructions, can we point to those? So I guess my first question is, what sort of rendering instructions, like color maps and rescale values, or? I think the short answer is yes. Our idea is that everything that is needed to visualize the map or visualize the data on a map should come from the data provider. And I think that's one of the advantages of open source self-hosted is wherever the data lives, we want to bring this front-end visualization tool there. And if they've decided that we need to use these rescale values or this color map or whatever the instructions are, it's already there and we intake it. Right, so if they don't provide rendering instructions, then this dashboard, it has a nice kind of smart failure where it'll default to some other configurations in the dashboard. If those don't exist, it'll just assign it something, so it gets rendered. There is that sort of layered failure process. Yep. Okay, does this mic still work? Yeah, it does. I'm just too tall. Yeah, I see one question in the Q&A for, can you describe the target audience for Veda? There we go. Now we should see it online. Can you describe your priority target audience for Veda? So let me peel this question back a little bit. We have the Veda project, which again, we've created a few different dashboards through this project. Each of those dashboards can target different end users. And I'll share a couple examples here in a second. Those end users we've seen range from policymakers to other scientists and researchers, all the way to the general public. When we're talking about the software behind Veda, our primary target audience is research organizations who are generating data products, but don't want to get stuck into Esri. Which is a little different than the end user being the general public or other scientists or things like that. So there's a bit of a different flavor when we're talking about who the priority audience is. Let me share actually a couple examples, if I can, of different dashboards. So this was the original Veda dashboard. When we talk about Veda and who the priority audience is for Veda, I think of this dashboard, which is really intended for the general public. And you can see it has a lot of the same elements that we've been working with today in our demo dashboard. It has a much more extensive data catalog that you can click through and explore these different data sets. You can also explore them on a map and generate time series charts. We also are showing that we can have different custom tools. And so I just want to show this briefly, where you can jump into an app that generates time series, fire perimeter progression information, all stemming from the same Earth Data Veda dashboard. Okay, so let me go back to another example. Whereas we also have this example of the Greenhouse Gas Center that was built with this software. So these are much more polished versions of a dashboard than what we just looked at today. This dashboard is really more intended for, or at least originally, for a more research-based audience. So a lot of the content in here is geared towards people who already understand, what urban emissions are and the data sets that I might be interested in, where in this case, the US government was looking for a way to pull together all of the work that is happening across agencies into one portal. And this is another great example actually of where they started with an ArcGIS hub and went down that path for a little bit and decided too complicated and we don't want to hand over all this information to Esri. So they wanted an open source solution, which is actually very similar to what we see with Earth.gov, which is a much more simple implementation of these dashboards, where they really just have some stories about agriculture that are very straightforward. So now hopefully you can kind of get a sense of the variety of applications that you can build with this software. I really wish I could generate more preview links for you in this in this session, so I'm sorry that we had so much trouble with that. But I did see some success with people configuring MDX files really quickly, and all of a sudden you have a map on a page if the preview worked. Okay, so that was a question on primary target audience. Any other questions that you all have from what you've messed around with, from the dashboards that we just looked at? Questions on the data? Yes, we like community contributions. The approach that we've been taking is we want some really core, highly reusable set of code that people can stand up a basic dashboard really quickly, and they can at least share maps of their data. But we know that, especially if our target audience are organizations that generate data products, that are doing some sort of research, they probably have really specific needs for their data that they're generating. And so you're going to need custom components. So all of this was built with the idea that it could be extendable. So I think like the first thing I would do is just build the custom code on your own dashboard. And if it works, then we think about pulling it back in. And we don't want to like slow down development and customization by saying, yep, come and contribute to this, open source repo. There'll be a review process, and you'll get all sorts of feedback that you probably didn't want. So we don't want to slow that down. But the idea is that eventually, the really valuable customizations and contributions make their way back into the core code. All right. Any other question? That's a hand, I think. Yes. Oh, we do have mics. We should probably be doing that, huh? I forgot.
I think this is very cool. My question is, Esri has other like web application function, and they also have infographic function that could be embedded in the map, and you click something, it generate infographics show maybe like ethnicity, poverty, those information, which is very useful and interactive. Are you planning to develop some of those tools as well? Or you just do the story map visualization stuff?
I think the short answer is no, we don't have plans, but I think it's a great suggestion. Like an infographic, I could see a feature to generate an infographic and embed it into a page being really useful. I think maybe could you explain a little more about some of the other web applications that you have in mind from Esri?
Sure, I can show you some some examples later. But the reason why, so I developed a lot of dashboard, and the reason why I use it is, even though sometimes it's not very friendly to me, but it's very friendly to people who are really looking at my map, and they think it's very easy to navigate. It's pretty, just has a lot of functions they can play with. So that's something really good about Esri. And I would love to see more like those open source thing. Yeah, but it could be some long process. And also the policymakers, what do they really care is the information there. Sometimes not where it is hosted. Like we send it all up, we share, because I developed dashboard for the state government as well. So the policymakers will just go there and check the dashboard, get the data they want. That's it. They do not care where it is, if it's spent money or not. And how could you fix this type of problems? I know it's a complicated issue.
Yeah. But it's a great question and complicated, and you probably have to go through, each question individually or each aspect individually. I mean, my gut reaction is, at some level, maybe we don't. Maybe like there is a space for Esri, there is a space for a tool like this, and I think finding out where it makes sense and where it doesn't is part of why we're here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, that's true. Thank you.
Yeah, another question? Yeah.
I want just to comment in your idea of the need of Esri. Like I do a lot of work in the global south, where they don't have access to Esri at all, and they care about like using open source, and they care about like where is also the data hosted. It's very important for them, basically, like to see where is the data and which tool you're using. I mean, not in the US, but yeah.
Market for this product. I think it's amazing. You just need to convince people how, let them use this one.
Yeah, I'm open to all ideas and applications. Volunteer hours, yes, please. It's a great question we're working through too. Yeah. Yeah, next question.
So a comment and a question. So the comment is something that's taken me my whole career to learn, which is while I love looking at maps, my customers actually don't like looking at maps. They want conclusions or business graphics. And they'll look at a map if there's only when there's something really compelling that affects the decision of the day that can only be told with a map. And so that's not, that's sort of a broader comment than the tool, but it's a comment about storytelling with data, and it's taken me a long time to learn that. The second question is, it's a really cool tool. I can see you using it. And so this is a standard question that we all ask ourselves before we start using an open source tool or even any new tool, which is, how secure is the future development path? Is this something that Development Seed is committed to and, going to provide the staff for coordinating the open source development and contributions, or is this something that could potentially go away, the key sources of funding go away?
Yeah.
I know it's a tough question.
Yeah, it's a question of 2025, I think. And it's a great question. I also think it's a bit of a chicken and egg scenario. Like Development Seed, we do actively maintain quite a few open source repos. It's just part of the ethos of Development Seed. The ones that we do maintain are the ones that are used. And so I think with a tool like this, if we see value, especially in areas like the Global South, if we see a usage increase, it's definitely something that we would want to maintain. So it's, like I said, a bit of a chicken and egg. Like, I understand the hesitancy until there is that commitment. But it, kind of goes both ways. Right. Yep. Yeah, I totally agree. Okay, did I miss any questions online? No? All right. It's late. We're out of time. I said that and I saw a yawn in the audience. That was perfect timing. Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you for working through all the challenges. If you have any questions, feedback, thoughts, reach out. I was supposed to be on this slide. Reach out, come talk to us after, and let's connect. But I'm excited for where this is going. Appreciate the time, everyone.